Hey everybody. Today we are looking at Marvel's The Ultimates. So, originally published in March of 2002, this ran through 13 issues until April of 2004. And what this really does is this explores sort of if we had real life superheroes like they did in the Avengers and we use them as if they were applied to a modern day context, in this case, the war on terrorism, how would this actually look like? This is one of the most incredible series I think Marvel produced, and it really brought back kind of the excitement of Marvel Comics in the early 2000s. I think during the 1990s, there was a big surge in popularity of comics, and then as we reached the end of that decade, things kind of started to, well, fade away. And so this, probably coupled with, a few years later, Marvel's Civil War, these really brought back the comics into the limelight. So I'm going to cheat today. I do have the original issues of the Ultimates, but it's just easier to kind of pull up the trade. So this is actually going to be Ultimates, the first Ultimates, and then Ultimates Volume 2. So we'll look at this one later. But right now, we're going to explore this. What I like about the Ultimates is this is really the story of, at least the first part of it, of Captain America. And first thing you'll see as we open this up, so this is written by Mark Millar. I say Mark Millar. I've heard people say Mark Miller, but I've always said Mark Millar. And it's got incredible, beautiful artwork by um, Brian Hitch. Couldn't think of his name. Had to cheat there for a second. But yeah, this is probably some of the best artwork I've seen in a series up until this point. What happened is this is kind of perfect because before this time, Marvel kind of had, I wouldn't say a house style like DC does, but it had a style of sort of this standard superhero comics. And then when this came out, man, this makes things look like a movie. This was essentially, what do you do if you have a unlimited budget to make a World War II movie at the beginning, right? I mean, just from the opening scene, you'll see that a lot of this stuff is almost photorealistic, right? If you took the color out of this and you blurred this a little bit, it would look like a photograph. And it's big. Everything is big. Everything is moody. I mean, look at this shot. This is people running into a battle while it's raining, while there's planes in the background, while they're doing this. It feels like a big epic scope. It's amazing. I mean, look at this stuff. The shadows, the explosions, and what I would say is this comic and the way this is drawn more than any other comic, or at least most other comics, is you get a sense of danger. A lot of times you see these comic books and you'll just see soldiers running into battle, and they're just like disposable, expendable. Doesn't really feel like it's a threat, and it's just kind of like the superhero is just gonna go in there and save the day. This does. I mean, look at this. You've got people dying. You've got the close up shots. You've got people being killed. You've got kind of a point of view, first person perspective of what it's like to go into battle. This reminds me a little bit of Band of Brothers in a sense, and then to a lesser extent Saving Private Ryan, just because of the way it is really showing kind of moment by moment events happening to a soldier in World War II. So, I mean, some of this stuff is absolutely incredible. But what you'll see is the way Captain America is kind of portrayed here. He's not the Captain America who's going to be fighting space aliens and zipping through space. He is a amped up human being who has been created in a lab to be faster, stronger, and better at fighting than any other soldier. That being said, he's not so superhuman that it seems strange. He's just a dude who is just a perfect weapon of warfare, especially for the time. And this is essentially the retelling of the original tale of Captain America. He's going into a this base to stop. Well, in the original one, it was Red Skull, and they were trying to shoot a V2 rocket, and him and Bucky jump on it and they stop it. This case is a little bit different because, as you'll see, it turns out there's some aliens behind this. But man, this. If you look at the artwork here, right? This is the explosion, the silhouette of soldiers, the lighting that goes on there, incredible stuff. I think this was kind of Brian Hitch's masterpiece, his magnum opus, as they say. But even the way this is written, right? The way this impacts you, like I said, this is done more like a movie than it is a traditional comic book. Here, if you read this, what you'll see is as Captain America is dying, as he's floating into the bottom of the ocean that he's been blasted into, what's going through his mind? Well, they don't put his thoughts, but what they do is they write this letter he has to um, his girl at home, which is Gail, and essentially it's just saying, hey, if you're getting this letter, I will. I'm not going to be here. I'm dying. And then a great line is right here is, heaven and hell can keep us apart, Gail Richards. I know in my heart that no matter what the future holds, you and I will be together again one day, always and forever, Steve. It's a pretty deep line, pretty good. And then it goes and fades into black, and then bam, whew, 2002. We're in the future. At the time, the present day. And what you see is how the world has changed. So what happens is, so look at this. This is a city that's been absolutely destroyed. So what happens is basically, as you can imagine, when you have superhero villains and heroes fighting each other, and beings running around with the strength to punch holes in the moon and all that kind of stuff, there's a lot of destruction, a lot of collateral damage. And even though that's kind of downplayed in most comics, this is kind of, well, what would happen if the Hulk did go rampaging through the city? Well, a lot of people would die, and there'd be a lot of destruction, right? This would be something on par with at least the level of September 11th, right? So this kind of explores that a little bit. And then you've got Iron Man. He's already created the suit. Talks a little bit about this. This does get very talking heavy, but it's actually, the way it's written isn't bad. It's not, sometimes when you have a lot of dialogue, it gets very boring. But this was pretty good. Explores a lot of different things. Kind of shows the origins of some of these characters as put into a modern context. But what you'll see here, guess who just got pulled out of the ice? Captain America. What I love about this is this really kind of explored what happens if you took a Captain America and you brought him from let's say 1945, near the end of the war, and then immediately brought him into the modern world. Like, look at all the things which are different, right? Like, in this case, he's like, oh, well, there's a black guy telling me something. Well, back in 1942, black people probably weren't holding those prominent positions, right? And people are acting kind of strange, people are acting kind of weird. You can imagine anytime you took somebody from one world and brought them into the modern world, how they would be affected. It'd be really interesting if you brought them into 2021 from 1942, because man, he might be disappointed, right? That's just my opinion. Anyhow, what you'll see is, again, kind of a more realistic take. Well, maybe not realistic, but a more believable take on how superheroes would really act. And everything is iconic. I mean, each one of these panels is almost a photograph, right? It's almost like you could pull something out of a Norman Rockwell album and put it in there. Just look at this. Just the flag waving with the sun coming through. It's amazing, amazing stuff, right? Like I said, everything looks like a movie. What I like about this is the way the uniforms are redone. So instead of it just being a retelling with the same uniforms, they change things up, right? There's Tony Stark, frolicking out in space. Some real issues here between Ant-Man or Giant Man and his wife, the Wasp. There's some domestic violence issues explored with this. What I love about this is the story of Thor. So Thor, obviously, he's a god of thunder, right? However, in this book, they kind of explore, is he really a god of thunder, or is he just a crazy guy who happens to have a vest that gives him quote-unquote superpowers, right? So we look at that, we explore that side of things, and the big thing about this is you get into what's real versus what is not real, what's an illusion, right? So this right now is is essentially, well, this is kind of the key part. So this is the Hulk. How does that look like when the Hulk actually turns into the Hulk, and what do you do? And what you'll find is a Hulk is just a destructive source of, you know, annihilation, basically, right? So people are scared. People are, he's destroying everything, and I think what this does is really portrays just how strong this dude is, right? So here he is, a giant man, and he's killing them, right? Basically, um, Captain America, though, this kind of shows the level of strength where he's at and his capability as a fighter. I mean, he basically takes on the Hulk. He just almost gets to the end where he can shoot this adamantium needle into him that's going to shoot him full of some sort of drug that calms him down. But right at the end, he gets caught, right? But it's okay because who's here to save the day? Well, it's Thor, the god of thunder. And he is able to kind of help things out. And what I love about this is it's like, okay, well, we've beaten him now. He's back to Bruce Banner. And here comes Steve Rogers. And he's like, you know what? You know what, Bruce? Screw you. Kicks him in the face. Knocks him the hell out, which is pretty cool. And then as we kind of look through this, there is a lot of underlying mysteries going on throughout this series. And what you'll see is, so here's the domestic violence part of things, which gets really nasty. And it's rare because it gets uncomfortable, right? Like immediately you're reading this, you're like, oh, okay, they're having the dispute. And then it kind of escalates, then it escalates. Next thing you know, people are punching each other. Things are getting really bad. You notice in here, Tony's not doing too well. And then this is where he uses ants, his control over ants, to well, really mess up his wife Jan. So that's kind of screwed up. But then there's Regret, there's Tony Stark, and then we get into Volume 2. So when this is Volume 2, this is just the second half of the first original Ultimates. There was an Ultimates 2 and an Ultimate 3. Ultimates 2, pretty cool. Ultimates 3, I won't be reviewing that one. It just didn't do it for me. But anyhow, so kind of going through, look at this artwork, man. This stuff is, like I said, you get this perspective of, you're actually there down with the people, right? You're actually seeing the things they're seeing. This looks like something you would see in one of those like morning talk shows, like Good Morning America or something like that, after an event like this happens. And I mean, if you think about it, that's what they would do, right? They would show like a news story of the church and then the people, and then they'd look at these individual things. But this makes you look, it makes it look like it's like you're right there, right? And this is the stuff that happens, right? Jan is completely screwed up. Love this shot because of the shadows. You see the sun's coming up underneath this, and you see the entire city just kind of in shadows. I don't know if anybody does it better than Brian Hitch. The expressions are good. Everything is perfect. You kind of, what I like is this does explore kind of Steve Rogers and what he's doing. Like, he's hanging out with people in their like 70s and 80s because those are the only people he can relate to, right? I mean, think about it. If you woke up 60 years in the future and let's say music was just like beeps and bops and all kinds of sounds like that, you'd be like, this is strange. I want to listen to music where people sing, where people play guitars and stuff like that. But well, he's kind of in the same boat, right? Everything he knows as far as culture, for him it was like yesterday. It was like last week. You know, he's like, man, like 2 weeks ago, I was sitting there, you know, listening to my World War II records and reading books from that age and hanging out with the boys. And next thing you know, I'm in this strange world where, you know, all kinds of different things are happening. And we see just kind of an exploration of, again, how people reacting to these heroes. And then, so then there's Thor, which, again, the big thing about him is we don't know if he's actually a superhero, if he is just a person who is crazy and delusional, likes to drink a lot of beer, and has some superpowers. Black Widow and Hawkeye. These are kind of cool. This was, you know, 2002, so I think the whole black leather thing hadn't been completely overdone yet. Obviously, with the Matrix coming out, that ended up being carried over into like the X-Men series and the X-Men movies. and in a lot of other places, everybody was now wearing trench coats and black leather. It worked in this context though because of the time, and it wasn't quite oversaturated yet. But you see the skill level of Hawkeye and what he's capable of. And what's nice about this too, it talks about kind of like the nanobots and what makes Black Widow special. Oh man, look at this. The amount of time it took for him to draw each one of these pictures must have been insanely long. Glad he did it, but man, that is a lot of detail. What I like too is when he does like military helicopters, they're the actual military helicopters, and he's actually doing the details, you know, like here, well, this is an M16 with the clip's a little off, but it's still the guns look like actual guns. Though this one's, I say that and I choose like the two panels where the guns seem a little off, right? That gun seems a little big, unless it's like a Desert Eagle or something. But anyhow, you know, just things look incredible. Sniper rifle looks like an actual sniper rifle, so it looks like he's referencing stuff that's makes sense. Then we have Wanda and Pietro, and they've got this weird relationship with each other, which I think is actually holds true in every incarnation of those two, right? But yeah, look at this. They talk about the alien invasion. This looks pretty cool, where it's just kind of like, hey, what happens when you look at an alien that gets messed up? You see, now this is interesting because so Dr. Pym has just been, basically he's beat up his wife. I mean, he's beat the crap out of his wife, right? Well, his Captain America, he's kind of got that old school mentality of, oh, you want to beat up a woman? Well, guess what? I'm going to beat up on you. And so that's exactly what he does. He goes wrong and he starts beating the hell out of Hank Pym, makes him turn into Giant Man, and then still beats the hell out of him because that's just what he does. Probably a little mad because if you recall, when Cap first woke up, he escaped from the facility he was being held at, and he was stopped because Giant Man squashed him with his hand. And you see Cap's using the environment to beat him, and then this is really interesting. He's like, how big do you feel now, right? Talking about, you know, like, oh, you feel like a big man beating up your wife? Well, how big do you feel now that I've just beat the hell out of you in your giant size form? This is great. So a lot of times I talk about layering in artwork, and when you have multiple layers, it makes things pop. You'll see that, right? Layer 1, layer 2, layer 3 in the background, layer 1, layer 2, layer 3, multiple layers. This has a whole bunch of them. Great use of the planes to do layering because you basically show 1, 2, 3, 4, background, helicopters, all this stuff. Great perspective. This really, really is a great way to make things pop in a panel. He does it better than just about everybody else. I mean, you'll just see that throughout. So what he's doing almost photorealistic drawing, yet also engaging the viewer's eyes with a lot of layers. So that's what makes it great, right? A lot of talking heads here. You see that Steve kind of has a thing for this girl, Jan. This is Nick Fury doing his thing. Look at this work, man. This is just so much detail with the trains. And I love these flashback scenes and the way they kind of make the color faded, almost like an old black and white movie with a little bit of hint of the primary colors. But yeah, this is great. Look how many panels on here, right? So you've got basically what, 8 or 9 panels, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. I was wrong, 10 panels, but it's showing you, it keeps referring back to this ticking time clock, which is obviously the bomb that's about to go off, so they need to stop it. And then you'll see kind of the first hints that there's something wrong because basically these guys are not necessarily human. I love how they make these shield, what do you call them, helicarriers, look like naval vessels. They look like landing helo decks or aircraft carriers in the Navy, except now they fly. I think that's really cool because that's, if you think about it, that's what a naval aircraft carrier is, right? It's a place where you can launch Marines from, if it's a Marine Expeditionary Unit, or you can launch helicopters from, or you can launch airplanes from, like Harrier jets, or like F-14 Tomcats, F-18s. I don't think we use Tomcats anymore, do we? I think those went out. Cool planes though, you know. But anyhow, I like the fact that they look like aircraft carriers because that's practical. So here we go. There's a final fight. Because guess what? Guess what's coming, guys? We are going to get some aliens coming down here, and we're gonna have to beat them up. But this is again incredible art, great angles. Like I said, this is a movie in a way. We've got these huge high perspective scenes jumping back and forth from scenic to close-ups to scenic to close-ups to this, which is an epic invasion. And guess what? Guess what has to happen? They've got to come together as a team to beat the hell out of these guys. But can they do it by themselves? Nope. They need Mr. Thor. And they're going to need the biggest and baddest of them all. And that's going to be the Hulk here in a second. But you know what? This is such a cool scene. This is where he's fighting that kind of like the leader of the monsters. And you see just how durable that monster is. But you can be durable as you want. You can be an alien. You can be whatever. But you go against goddamn Captain America and he's going to beat your ass. You know why? Because Captain America doesn't lose. So here's them taking on all these aliens. And there's the alien getting beat up by Captain America. What I like about that is there's like an epic battle going on, but then there's the individual battles between Captain America and the alien. But this is the greatest scene ever in the book. Like basically, he's getting beat up by this alien, but Cap's gonna come at you. He's gonna come at you with the power of the red, the white, and the blue, and he chops this dude in half with the shield. And this guy was basically saying, "You should surrender." And you know what he says? He says, "Surrender, surrender. You think this letter in my head stands for France?" And I love that because it's basically, that's the kind of stuff that somebody would say from 1942, right? Nowadays, people probably wouldn't say that because they'd be scared they'd offend somebody, I guess. But he's a man from 1942. He doesn't care about that stuff. But I love that line. And then this is cool because they're basically like, "Hey, we need you to turn into the Hulk." He's like, I really don't want to turn into the Hulk." "Well, that's cool, but we're going to drop you out of this helicopter, and if you don't turn into the Hulk, well, you're going to die." And he's like, "What? No." Well, that's what they do. And guess what happens? It works. He turns into the Hulk. So apparently if you need to get yourself a super soldier who's virtually indestructible, you go grab Bruce Banner and you throw him out of a plane, right? Incredible art. What I like about this too is if you look at like page 1 of this series in the first panel, the art is incredible. If you look at the last side of it, the art's incredible as well. The style changed slightly over time. I think it became a little bit smoother, a little more efficient, probably just to get this book out, but it's still incredible. The detail here is amazing. He loves this rain effect throughout the series. You can see that. As it comes to an end, you'll see this. And then they've gotten smarter. They figured out how to like calm the Hulk down a little bit. So before, remember, it was this big, huge deal where it was like, "Oh, we've got to get Dawn, Captain America, and Giant Man trying to find him to inject him." Now they're just like, "Hey, Hawkeye, just shoot an arrow into him with the whatever it is, the serum." But this is cool because they shoot into him and he's mad. He's like, "Oh, you want to shoot me?" So he starts running. He's about to attack him. And you see the fear in this guy's eyes. And then it's like, Giant Hulk. Oh, he transforms right into to it. And then these guys are like giving him shit. He's like, "Oh, Mr. Hawkeye, Mr. Tough super soldier, huh? You gonna get, you scared of the little guy?" It's like, yeah, well, you were the one who just shot the Hulk, right? So. And then this is kind of the moment at the end. This is cool because I think this was written originally as being a closed-end series without any loose ends, but you'll see kind of it wraps up pretty nicely at the end here. And then I think what they wanted to do is sort of create something for the future, right? Create a little bit of an open end to add the second and third series. So you'll see there's Jan and Captain America. They're doing things well. And then there is Sam Jackson. No, there's Nick Fury kind of going, hey, life is good, and they just saved the world. There you go. And there's a couple of cool little covers, and then it kind of goes through the arts. Well, that's it. That's the Ultimates. If you ever get the chance, you want to spend some time reading something that really represents the best of what Marvel had to offer back in the day, I would say this is it, man. It's almost 20 years ago when this came out, but you pit this against anything that's on the shelves today, and this is way, way better. Anyhow, that's all I got. Hey, if you like this, feel free to subscribe or follow me on social media. I just do a lot of drawing, so that's pretty cool. Anyhow, thanks, guys.